أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أو كظلمات في بحر اللج يغشاه موج من فوقه موج من فوقه سحاب ظلمات بعضها فوق بعض إذا أخرج يده لم يكد يراها ومن لم يجعل الله له نورا فما له من نور رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي فالحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Everyone, once again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we're going to conclude our discussion on this complex set of parables in Surah An-Nur. And the final piece of those parables is the parable of the ocean. Allah talks about two parables for believers. One was the lamp, and then there was the homes. And then we moved on to two parables for the disbelievers. And yesterday we covered the one where he's out in the desert, and he's dying of thirst, and he's parched, and he sees a mirage. And we took some pieces of that parable that Allah described, and we tried to isolate them bit by bit. Now we're going on the opposite extreme end. One parable was about them being burnt out in the light and being blinded by extreme light, and this one is going to be them going in the depths of darkness. Sometimes the Quran is very brief in the way that it speaks, because there's a principle in Arabic and in many other languages, and it's certainly applied in the Quran. Al-labibu min al-isharati yafhamu. The intelligent person can fill in the blanks, basically. They can take a hint. Urdu speakers know aqalman ke liye ishara kafi hai. Right? So when Allah says there's somebody in the middle of the desert, it doesn't mean they set out deciding to go towards death. Probably went on a trade caravan, got robbed on the way, or a storm came, got separated from their tribe. Something happened. But they started out on a natural course and something messed up happened. Now, here we are, Allah is going to describe somebody in the middle of the ocean. Well, nobody decided to take a helicopter ride and jump off in the middle of the ocean. They probably went off by sea, went on some trade route on their ship. وَجَرَيْنَ بِهِمْ. Allah describes in another surah that the good winds took them along. وَفَرِحُوا بِهَا. And they were very happy with the winds that were taking them out to sea. And everything, they thought everything's going to be okay. جَاءَتْهَا رِيحٌ عَاصِفٌ. Then a tough wind comes, a ruthless wind comes. وَجَاءَهُمُ الْمَوْجُ مِنْ كُلِّ مَكَانٍ. And then the winds start hitting them from every direction. The boat starts rocking. And it's basically, that was an image already described in the surah. That was a different parable. And in that parable, by the end of it, the storm calms down. And then they're okay. They're holding on to the planks of the ship, saying, if you just rescue us from this, then لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الشَّاكِرِينَ. We're going to be grateful. We promise. We promise we're going. And then after Allah settles the ship down, then they go back to being the way that they used to be. They go back to being ungrateful. In this parable, it's almost as if there's a scenario B from that original parable. In other words, there was a ship, it was being rocked, and instead of the storm calming down, the ship basically got turned over. And this person on board is now out in the middle of the sea, in the middle of the storm. And it doesn't seem like, just to set you the stage, it doesn't seem like this is nighttime. It seems to me, wallahu a'lam, that this is actually happening in the daytime. Okay, so the cloud, Allah is going, and I'll show you the indications in the text that this is happening in the day, but the day is getting darker and darker and darker. So there's an aspect of diminishing light that's happening in this ayah. So let's look at the ayah, the wording directly. أَوْ كَظُلُمَاتٍ فِي بَحْرٍ لُجِّي. Or like multiple layers of darkness, that's how I'm translating ظُلُمَات, or like multiple layers of darkness in an ocean that is, now the Arabic word is in an ocean described with the word lujji. I'm going to say an endless ocean, a relentless ocean. That's how I would describe the word lujji. It deserves a little bit of attention. لُجَّةُ الْبَحْرِ أو لَجَّةُ الْبَحْرِ حيث لا يدرك قعره. When an ocean is such depth that no one really knows how deep it goes. That's actually lujja or lejja in Arabic. The depth feels infinite. An ocean that feels like its depth is going on forever. But lajjul bahr or lujjul bahr bid-dhamm, al-ma'u al-kathir la yura tarafahu, extent of water where you cannot see the end of it, meaning you can't see any land on either side. Every direction you look at is just endless, endless, endless water, right? So two descriptions of luj or lujja or lajja, that the verb is either its endless depth or endless width. So you are in the middle of something that has, it seems like it's infinite on both sides. If you saw some land, at least you could say, you know what, if I flap my arms enough, I'll reach some kind of, I see some rock over there, I see an island, I see something. Like in the last parable, the guy saw, at least he saw something. He saw, it was a false image, but he saw a mirage. And he's going to start flapping his way, dragging his way in the sand towards it, stumble towards it, and find out that it's nothing. But in this parable, this person finds themselves in the middle of an ocean. The depth of it is unknown, endless, and the expanse of it is endless. This is Bahrun Lujji. Also interesting that the ya and nisba, this ya, the lujji, the ya has a shadda on it, in the word Bahrun Lujji, is not a typical kind of adjective that is used in the Quran. It's not actually typical for the Quran to use this style of adjective. But this is the style of adjective that got used twice in this parable. Once you saw Kawkabun Durri, and now you see Bahrun Lujji. So you see kind of both of them together. Are you looking for somebody, young man? Are you looking for his glasses? Let's see if we can help him. That's okay. Let's see if we can help him. Guys, if his glasses are behind the stage, maybe you can try to find him. Okay. It's all good. We'll wait for him. No, not at all. Don't be sorry at all. Not there? I'm sorry, beta. It's okay. Okay. All right, where was I? Somewhere in the ocean. Okay. So the ocean is endless on both sides, meaning in terms of its depth and its sort of its expanse. So we're going to notice a difference between the last parable and this one. In the last parable, you saw a person who was struggling, even though they were dying, they were struggling and making every effort they can in a desperate, impossible attempt to survive. So even though they're dying, they're going to do whatever they can to try and survive and reach the water, right? So even though it's a false hope, they still have hope, isn't it? But this is going to be a parable where a person is in the ocean and they don't even see false hope. They just see an endless, like deathscape of hopelessness, both on the sides and going down on the inside. So basically, there's kind of a hopeless on top of hopeless situation, just in the way that the ocean is being described. If there was no further description, this would already be hopeless. But then that's not enough. Allah then adds, يَغْشَاهُ مَوْجٌ مِّن فَوْقِهِ مَوْجٌ مِّن فَوْقِهِ سَحَابٌ. This complex grammar here. Actually, you could argue that this is all one large mawsuf and sifa, which would then mean that what's covering it is a wave on top of which there's another wave, on top of which there's a cloud. Wave and cloud. Now, if you've ever seen you know those crazy surfers, those surfers that enjoy being close to death and they go to these 100-foot waves and they're just kind of riding right underneath the wave. You know what I'm talking about? Right? Now imagine somebody drowning and they see this tower of wave coming on top of them. Right? The fear of it. Like the boat already got flipped over. They're already kind of hanging in a plank and they don't see any land anywhere. They're drowning. And then on top of that, there's a giant wave that comes. Now, I don't know if some of you might have an ocean experience. I have very little ocean experience. And one of my ocean experiences was extremely humbling. I was in Trinidad many years ago. And they said, oh, this is a wonderful beach, Sheikh, just go in. I was like, I'm not a sheikh, but I'll go inside, I'll have fun. So I go in about 20, 30 feet in by the water. So the water was about neck deep, so it's okay. I'm not a good swimmer, so it's okay. Neck deep is still okay. I can still feel my feet on the ground. And this big wave comes out of nowhere. It was a nice day, out of nowhere. This wave comes on top of me, slaps me on the head, and it flips me, I don't know how many times. And I slam my head on the ground like a nail like the hammer going into the nail, like really hard, right? And then I flip back up to the ground and I'm like, what just happened? Because the water has such an overpowering force, it's so dominant over a human being and over all creatures, that you're completely, utterly helpless. And by the way, when it was flipping me, I remember that I couldn't move my limbs. Like I couldn't, when you're bracing for impact, you want to gather your limbs together. But the water has such force that you're basically like stretched open like a fan, and there's nothing you can do about it. Your limbs aren't even in your control anymore. That's how powerful the waves can be, right? So now when Allah is describing this person, imagine they're still on the surface. That's why they can see there's no land. And they kind of try to feel down there, but they can't feel the depth. They don't even know how bad it is. And then a wave comes and it just slaps them underwater. And now this guy that was above the water, he saw clouds above him, right? Now what is the significance of clouds? This is also important. Clouds above you keep you from seeing the sun directly, right? And you saw in the previous parable, there was too much sun. And you saw before that the sun, Allahu nuru samawati wal ard, the tree is being fueled by constant exposure to the sun. And it's neither eastern nor western. And by the way, when you're navigating in the day, then you need the sun. And when you're navigating at night, what do you need? The stars. But if the sky is covered in clouds, you don't know your way in the day, and you don't know your way at night. You're completely, utterly lost. So not only are you in the middle of an endless death, there's no way you can even get a sense of direction because it's covered by clouds. And then comes a wave on top and slaps you under. And as you're going under, the lower a person is going in the water, imagine they're still looking up, right? And the clouds are already gray, so it's not clear blue, it's gray. But the lower they're going, it's getting darker. It's getting slowly, it's getting darker. And their limbs aren't even under their control. But as they're going darker, they notice another tower is rising, even above them. And what's that? That's yet another wave. And then it comes crashing down. And by the way, mentioning waves twice, this is actually a rhetorical device in the Arabic language. It's used to describe things that keep on happening over and over and over again. ثُمَّ ارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ كَرَّتَيْنِ. Then return your gaze twice over. What does that mean? Over and over again. كَلَّا إِذَا دُكَّتِ الْأَرْضُ دَكًّا دَكًّا. Why is it mentioning twice? Over and over and over and over and over again. This style of Arabic exists where when you mention something as twice, it actually means relentlessly, over and over. Like that was a really bad wave. I think it's over now. No, here's another one. And there's another one. And there's another one. So موج من فوقه موج من فوقه min fawqihi sahab, rather. And on top of all of that, there's clouds. Now, what's the significance of clouds other than just blocking my ability to see the sky? The clouds, when you're a sailor and you see clouds, that means a storm is coming. And when you see even if you're a sailor and you see clouds in the distance, you know that the ship is going to be in trouble. You got to get away from the clouds as much as possible, right? The experienced sailor can tell the storm well before the storm is there, already starts bracing for impact. So the fact that there are clouds above actually suggests that it's pretty bad in the ocean, but it's not about to get any easier because what's above? Clouds. So min fawqihi mawj, min fawqihi mawj, min fawqihi sahab. This is the state that Allah describes the disbelievers like darkness in. Now let's look at yet another contrast. In the previous parable, we saw that the disbeliever was desperately motivated to move. It was almost as if Allah was giving us a picture of what's going on inside the disbeliever with the word dham'an, extremely thirsty. You remember that word? So that's the state of what's inside the body of the disbeliever, inside of him. But in this parable, Allah is not describing what's happening inside the disbeliever. Allah is describing what's happening outside the disbeliever. So this parable is actually about the environment of the disbeliever. Not the inside state, but actually the environment. And there are two levels of darkness. There's a darkness inside a person, and there's a darkness outside a person. You have, for example, in Surah Al-Falaq, or in Surah Al-Nas, you have an interesting contrast. You have you have the evil of the outside. وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ. Right? You've got this outside evil. And then you also have the evil of the inside, min sharril waswasil khannas, on the inside, right?